Hello, on Forest Focus as we look ahead to Nottingham Forest trip to Brighton on Sunday. Can the Reds make it 5 Premier League games without defeat? We'll discuss that in full, as well as the latest on the future of the City Ground and more in the company of, first of all, Pete Blackburn. Morning, Pete. How are you? Honest
Yeah,
answer.
not bad. Not bad.
Good.
Slightly hungover and speaking to you from what seems to be some sort of padded cell at my office in London, but otherwise fine, yeah.
Good. Good to have you with us. Appreciate the honesty. Second guest is Mikey Clarke. Mikey, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm not I'm not hungover, but it did take me about 3 days to recover from Liverpool. I must admit, I was still struggling at the start of the week, but obviously very happy after what happened.
I did get multiple texts throughout Sunday just saying what state you were in still, progressively later through the day. So that is genuine. What state Mikey was in. He made the most of it, as everyone who went should have done. So, yes, we're recording this very early or relatively early, because Mikey is going to the cricket. So we're going to rattle through a lot of stuff as much as we can until about 10 to 10. But good morning to everyone who's with us. I did see Richard Spray, who was on Saturday, is in the chat. And it's like, it says it's 3 a.m. where he is. So that's either dedication to the cause or you've got some problems in your life, Richard. But good to have you with us. Right, Brighton away. Pete Blackburn, general thoughts on the game, ambitions for the game, and how have you recalibrated them after Liverpool or not?
Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of a change there. I mean, my overall feeling is just excitement, I think. And I sort of hope the players feel that too. I think we've put ourselves in a position now where there's just minimal pressure because we've had such a solid start to the season. We've stolen a result that no one would have had us down for at the weekend, and we've got to go into this with massive confidence now. I think we've got another blueprint for how we can play. We've really laid that down at the weekend, so we can go there and be a really impressive counter-attacking team, or we know that we can go there and clog up the middle of the pitch and frustrate. And, I think it's brilliant to have those sorts of options. We're coming into this game having had outstanding performances across the pitch. Confidence levels must be high. So I think we go into it with no pressure because things have gone so well for us. But if we can come out of this still unbeaten, then, we're going to start dreaming, aren't we? So just really excited to see it, to be honest.
What about you, Mikey? Particularly as you were at Anfield, are you now expecting, a sweeping victory and to vanquish the whole of Sussex by Sunday afternoon or not?
No, yeah, I wished. No, but I'm in the same mindset as Pete in that I'm really enthused and optimistic and really pleased with what I've seen so far this season. I think what gets me is we seem to have different plans for different games now. We're very flexible. We've got a load of options on and off the bench. And I think I said at the live show, for those that went or watched it when you put it out, that when we were discussing what we'd do at Liverpool, I hoped Nuno will basically shoe on as many midfielders in as he could, maybe drop the wingers, and then if we're still in the game after 60 minutes, maybe go for it then. And that is exactly what he did. So, we did it in pre-season. We had Dominguez and Anderson wide. They blocked at that midfield. Match of the Day, to be fair to them, did a great piece on Forest and how they closed the spaces. And that's what I saw from till the beer kicked in. That's what I was seeing for most of the game behind the goal. And it gives me a lot of optimism that we're going to spend the week studying Brighton. And we've always done pretty well against Brighton. I know there's been a few close games there. We turned them over 3-1 at City Ground a year or two back. We weren't great there last season, but I think now we've got so many options, it almost keeps the opposition guessing as well. So it's not as if, there were parts of last season, certainly, towards the end of the first season, where we could pretty much name our starting 11. And I think you could probably put 9 or 10 players on there now. But does anybody really know how we're going to go? There's a lot to be said for keeping the same team, but then there's a lot to be said for maybe going a bit more aggressive with Callum and Alanga back in a team. So I'm really pleased. I'm really enthused. I was delighted with what I saw. And if we can do anything like that again and stifle what they're very good at, and I saw a little bit of them last night, their second string, I think they made 8 or 9 changes. They're still a bloody good team. So if we can still be in the game after an hour, we've got a chance of nicking it. And then we've got 1 or 2, we've got Chelsea, but then we've got a couple of home games where you think we can take points. So by the end of the next month or so, we could be sitting in a really, really strong position, having played about a fifth of the season. So I'm delighted with what I'm seeing.
What about Brighton as opponents, Pete? If you were bracketing the table and saying, what you'd expect, a bit noisy, you'd expect them to finish in. Are you thinking they're like a 7th to 10th team? Or I'm trying to pitch the quality of opponents we've got, basically.
Yeah, I think that's probably where they are. I think it's probably fair to say we're not totally sure what we're going to get from this Brighton team at the moment. Obviously, it's very early days. They've had a change of manager, and I think that the style has changed relatively significantly. So I think it's hard to be totally sure what we're going to get with them. And I think when you get a manager like theirs who's come in so young, there's always going to be a lot of media narratives and focus, and people are going to get very, very excited about them. And I think that happened in the early few games of the season, where there's an awful lot of talk about this sort of new Brighton revolution and stuff. But really, I don't think we're totally sure where they're going to be. But you'd assume they'd be in that sort of 7th to 10 bracket, clearly with the possibility of breaking up higher or having a difficult run. But yeah, I'd be fairly sure that's where they're going to be. And to be honest, I don't think we're miles away from that. So I do think that we can go there and get something if we put in the sort of performance that we did against Liverpool, that sort of quality. And it doesn't have to be the same game plan, I don't think. I'm not convinced necessarily that this is a sort of plug in and play exactly what we did last time out. I think we'll discuss that with our lineups later, I guess. I think there may be options to perhaps go there with slightly more intent earlier on, but we'll see. But I think the real joy of it now is that the players should go into it knowing that the way that Nuno sets them up is something that they can have real confidence in. Whatever way he chooses to go, they'll definitely be able to have confidence in that, and I think we can as fans as well. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think they've changed style a little bit. They look like they're pressing pretty relentlessly, but they're not the sort of insanely possession-oriented team that they were under De Zerbi. I don't think it. I think if you look at their stats, they're one of the most likely teams in the league to get the ball up the pitch quickly. I think maybe 3rd most accurate long passes in the whole league. So I guess that shows something about the way that they're changing. And I think they present real opportunity for us as well, because that looks to me like a pretty immobile back line that's going to be quite high at the pitch. And we do have weapons to take that on. So it's exciting. But I think that 7 to 10 bracket is right. But I do think that we're not miles off it on our day. So I think we could go and spring another surprise.
I've already recorded the opposition preview with Az Phillips, who's the other half of FPL Black Box, discussing Brighton, and he identifies a lack of mobility and space in behind fullbacks as their weakness, which is interesting. Is slightly reflected in our teams, which we'll probably come on to next, really, because it's probably the biggest talking point. Just before we do that, we'll do a quick word for the Trent navigation. You can watch Brighton versus Forest on the big screen, and you can hang around and enjoy Man City beat Arsenal straight after, and there's a quiz after that. In fact, you can spend the whole day there, because you can get breakfast from 10 a.m, wipe off any Pete Blackburn hangover, and then there's Sunday roasts and pizzas from 12, and then straight into Brighton v Forest. So spend the day at the Nav, a very super Sunday, as it says on the graphic. Right, we'll go into our lineups then. Like I was saying, I think I said none of us have got the same 11, which is quite interesting. We'll start with Mikey's, and I shall read it out, and then Mikey can talk us through it. Mikey, correct me if the shape is wrong when you start chatting, but you've got Sells in goal, same back four as Liverpool: Aina, Milenkovic, Murillo, and Moreno. Yates and Ward-Prowse in midfield with Anderson, Gibbs-White, and you bring in Hudson-Odoi in behind Chris Wood. What's your thinking? What's the shape that you're going for there?
So they always say don't change a winning team, right? So my initial thought was those players have done enough to stick in the lineup, but I think Pete's just hit the nail on the head with what he said a second ago. Liverpool away, Man City away, maybe Arsenal, they're different kettles of fish. And whilst Brighton are an excellent team, and they are, this is a game where prior to Liverpool, I was far more hopeful of us getting something, and that's not changed. But I think it's given me a lot of confidence that if we need to tweak it, we can. So I'll just work my way through it really quickly. That back four was incredible at Liverpool, absolutely incredible. So there's no changes there. I think Yates and Ward-Prowse showed what they're all about. And again, we're going to spend a lot of the game, I think, on the back foot. So I wouldn't change that. My only tweak is putting Callum in on the left instead of Dominguez. And this is not a reflection on Dominguez, because he ran his socks off. And in fact, in the first half, I commented to all the guys around me that look how hard he's working, he's covering in, he's tracking in. He was knackered, he was goosed after 50 minutes and they took him off. So I do think it's a slightly different game, this one. And the reason I bring Callum in is not just because he scored the goal, but because that right-hand side of Brighton is totally different than Liverpool's. So Liverpool lined up with Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's unbelievable, and a guy called Mo Salah on that right-hand side, which is slightly different to Veltman and Minter. So you're going to get more joy and more attacking threat down that left-hand side. And I think that could be our outball. So I'm bringing Callum in. And then I think if we can stay in the game to 55-60, you've then got a real option of bringing Anthony Elanga on. And we saw what he did on Saturday. So my instructions will be to the team, work hard, keep the shape, don't do anything daft, stay in the game, obviously break when we can, try and exploit that left-hand side. Because they basically play, I watched them against Man U when they were really good. I watched them a bit last night, and they've kind of reverted to a 4-4-1-1, kind of. They have Ruter in behind the striker. They've got Minter and Matoma that kind of play as wingers. And then they have the two. But that back four, and Pete's right, push up really high. They're not the most mobile, which again lends to my thoughts about getting Callum in the team. So for me, it's one change. Let's get Callum in the team, but let's look in that last half an hour if there's a 1-goal difference or if we're level to try and win the game. And that is a crazy mindset from me because I'm always about valuing the point away from home. But I'm in such a positive headspace at the moment that if we're level after an hour, I reckon we can go and nick it.
I suppose Anderson's the name that I noticed because wide right looks like a bit of a square peg in a round hole type thing. Is that him doing a job and tucking in and being disciplined or what?
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. So the way they move up, they just wait for you to... They try and break lines, don't they? Not as much as they did with De Zerbi. And Pete's right, they are playing more long balls, but they will try and just cut us open. And the beauty of having Elliot Anderson in that team is that he can slot back into a midfield and you can go to a 5. Gibbs White can go wide right if needs be. That is so fluid and flexible, that team. You could go man for man and go 4-4-1-1 if you wanted to, or you could make a 5. So, and also, I think I said it last time I was on, Elliot Anderson's just unbelievable footballer. He's hit the ground running. He's been fantastic, and you have to play him. And I'm not for shoehorning him in, but he played there against Liverpool and was brilliant. So my thought process is don't change him. So it's just the one change for me, Matt, and that's Callum.
Very good, very good. I'll do Pete's team next. I'll read through that for people who are listening, not watching as well. Sells in goal, the same back for Aina Milenkovic, Murillo, Moreno. Ryan Yates, James Ward-Prowse in midfield. And then the one change is that Pete has Elanga in instead of Hudson-Odoi with Elliot Anderson on the left, Elanga on the right, Gibbs White in behind Chris Wood. Is your thinking very similar then, Pete, but you've gone with a different wing option, or is it slightly different?
No, it is very similar. I can see sort of the case for four options here, and I think it's worth saying at the outset, Nuno chooses any of those, and I'm happy. I'm sort of sold. I'll believe in the game plan and go there thinking that we can get a point or even more. I can see the idea of going unchanged because clearly there's a blueprint there now. And perhaps it is that sort of plug and play option that this is a Brighton team that does have plenty of similarities to Liverpool in that they're gonna look to dominate, to keep the ball, play through the middle a lot, and their biggest individual threats, I guess, are those two wide men. I think we'll be able to keep their striker pretty quiet. I think with the back four we've got, which is absolutely astonishing now. I mean, you look across that. I think Mikey touched on it. You look across that back four. I mean, the confidence you can have in those players is unreal. Murillo's real potential now unlocked by having Milenkovic next to him, and the fullbacks who put in, the best sort of dual fullback performances that I can even remember as a Forest fan. I think I don't even know when would be last looking back to. I mean, maybe Louis Jean and Brennan had some great days, but yeah, I mean, unbelievable performance. So yeah, the way I'm looking at it really is that I can see the benefit of going with a relatively similar mindset and trying to have bodies in the middle of the pitch. And you've obviously got Anderson there who can tuck in and do that job for us and make that a bit of a box. But I just do think that we can get at them. That back line is so much more vulnerable than the Liverpool one was. There is absolutely no pace in between them. I mean, I'm guessing Kadioglu may come come and play left back rather than Hinchelwood. And I did have Hinchelwood partly in mind when I picked this lineup. So I can really see the benefit of Hudson-Odoi getting at Veltman. But for me, it just feels like Elanga is our sort of potential secret weapon in this one. The unreal pace that he's got and ability to get in behind that defence, and we know that's what they're going to fear. I think having Elanga there may force them to even think about the way that they're playing. It could really unsettle them. So that's sort of where I've gone with it. But I wouldn't be remotely upset or shocked if we go unchanged. And to be honest, I wouldn't even be that surprised if Nuno thinks about playing both of the wide men and really going for it. And I'd be totally behind it. I think Dominguez is really unlucky to miss out in both of these teams. He's not really put a foot wrong, and he does such a great job for us when he plays. I think the difficulty is we're not really making the very most of him, and we're sort of asking him to do a job for us. So it sort of feels like he's the obvious one to miss out. But I don't think it's impossible that you consider him as a central midfield option competing with Yates as well. The other thing I wanted to say, I'm sure you've talked about this in the last few days, is James Ward-Prowse was absolutely outrageous against Liverpool. I'm sure it felt like he flew under the radar a little bit. For me now, I'd sort of like to not be too reactive generally, but he just feels like an absolute lock in the team. Such a calm head, and the way that he just dealt with everything in that game, it's just precision. Everything was so effective. Did he make any missteps? I'm not sure he did. And we've obviously lost Sangare there, but I just feel he can bring a real calmness next to whoever he's got. So for me, that's a team that can go there and go with real intent. We could look to stifle them, but we keep that option of Elanga getting in behind, and I think it could be really, really successful for us.
Yeah, if people haven't seen the Guy Mowbray episode yesterday, it was interesting getting his perspective on who stood out, and he mentioned Ward-Prowse. Almost, the back four and the fullbacks were primarily the ones he focused on, but then it was Ward-Prowse. And it was interesting to hear a neutral perspective on that. So check that out if you haven't already. This is sort of a spoiler for my team, Pete, but you've both sort of got two sitting midfielders. Are there any worries about playing that in an away game? You don't want an extra midfielder then?
Well, I think the thing is, you have that lineup on the screen as being sort of a 4-2-3-1, but it doesn't really need to look like that all the time, and it's not going to be sort of rock solid. I think there's a fluidity to it, and it moves pretty quickly to having four men covering the middle of midfield if you want, or it also moves to James Ward-Prowse dropping as a sort of single pivot with Anderson and Yates next to him, and Gibbs White sort of drifting. So I don't think it needs to be a massive concern, to be honest. I think we have a really good balance. We lack a genuine destroyer, and I don't think I'm not even sure that the Sangare injury has changed that situation, to be honest, because I'm not totally clear that that's the player that he is. So I think it's a case of finding a balance in those central midfield positions, and I think with Yates, Ward-Prowse, possibly Dominguez, and then Anderson tucking in and helping, and you forget, Gibbs White's work rate is absolutely outrageous. I think between them you get the things that you need to cover that space and not be too concerned. And we're expecting them, I guess, to play with like a pretty attacking 10 themselves, aren't we? Whether it's Pedro or Ruto, I guess. So I don't think we're going to be overwhelmed in midfield necessarily. It's not desperately a concern for me. It's certainly less so than it would have been against Liverpool, with Trent coming in and dominating that area as well.
Very good. Go on, Mikey.
Just to add to Pete, I'm nodding along, he's right. The thinking behind Anderson, like I said, was to drop him in. That it's so fluid, you can suffocate the periods of the game if you need to. And just going back to Ward-Prowse as well, Pete, you're absolutely right, mate. Honestly, I've been a Ward-Prowse fanboy for many a year. That Southampton Academy with Luke Shaw and Gareth Bale and everybody like that, they've churned out some amazing players. And the new lad is Dibley. My word, he looks a hell of a talent. So whatever they're doing down there is good. But Ward-Prowse spent a lot of his career at Southampton. The fact he's in a Forest team is great. And I was watching him on Saturday, and he does, I don't know whether anyone else does this, but when you're in the crowd and you're under a bit of pressure and you do that thing with your hand, which is just basically calm down. He must have done that about 10 times in the first half. And all that is just experience, just telling the people around him, just calm down, take a breath, get back in your right position, concentrate, focus. As Nuno said after the game, it's all about closing the spaces, backing your mate up on the pitch. And that's what Ward-Prowse brings to that team. Another voice, a load of experience. And I guess that answers your question why I'm happy playing 2 in midfield, because he's 1.5 on his own, and you can get an Elliot Anderson drop back in or a Gibbs White, so that wouldn't worry me at all, Matt.
Very good. 200 people watching. Do us a favour and hit like on the video if you haven't already. It does make a big difference. So we'll just look at mine. It's really similar, but it looks a bit skewy on the graphic. 4-3-3 basically. I've gone with the same back 5 as the other lads, and then 3 in front of them in Ward-Prowse, Ryan Yates, and Elliot Anderson, playing quite narrow. And then Gibbs White in behind Wood and Elanga in the team for Dominguez to offer a bit more threat in attack in support of Chris Wood. I think it's really the same as the other 2 lads. Like when we haven't got the ball, it's 2 banks of 3 in front of a back 4 to be disciplined and make life as difficult as possible for Brighton. But then you've got Elanga's pace on the counter-attack to exploit what we've said is a less mobile Brighton defence that plays a high line and is pretty aggressive in their press. So I think Elanga, to run in behind would offer a good threat. I think we can go there and play one of the wingers. But like Pete said, I wouldn't be surprised if Nuno went with the same team. In fact, I suspect he will go with the same team and then follow the same formula of stay in the game and then make the aggressive, positive subs, which I loved at Anfield. Or, I mean, like Pete said as well, he could play both wingers. I don't think he will, but it's just great that we've got those options. So yeah, that's the kind of role I would foresee. Be disciplined, stay in the game, and something like that. But I don't see us making sweeping changes because we don't need to. Any thoughts on that team, either of you chaps? It's basically the same as yours, really.
Yeah, sorry, Mikey.
You can first, Nick. Go on.
I was just going to say, what I think is really nice is that we've got such a good sense of fluidity in the players that we've got now, because I think Anderson sort of changes everything. He's so versatile and he's such a smart, bright footballer that you can sort of plug him into that team, and it feels like he can cover so many different areas of the pitch that he gives us massive flexibility. So you now have that lineup there where we could go out there with that 11, and Elanga could basically just float wherever we feel like he's going to be the most threat on the day. If Veltman's looking a bit leggy, he can go across there, and Anderson and Gibbs White are going to be able to move, and it gives us the opportunity to do that. And I just think it's a really nice position that we've got in now, with a bit of sharp and sensible recruitment, where we've got players who can really offer us that sort of flexibility. It's a really, really nice, positive position to be in.
Danscape does note in the chat that James Ward-Prowse does have a very calming haircut. He doesn't have a Premier League haircut. You can't be too wild with a good old side parting. So good point. And someone else mentioned about João Pedro. I mean, he's in my fantasy team, but I really hope he doesn't play, because I think he's a quality, number 10, or he can play number 9. If they don't have him, I think that would help us massively as well. So keep an eye on the press conferences with their manager. Nuno's speaking later today, I think, and I imagine, is it Hertzler? I can't remember his name. Will be tomorrow or Friday morning. One other slide I wanted to show quickly. I spotted this just before we started recording from the other 14 on Twitter about shot accuracy. This is outside the big 6 clubs, but Chris Wood's top with 70%, 10 shots on target already, 2 goals to his name. He could have had more. I think Sam Johnson made at least one good save from him in that Wolves game. So yeah, he's top of the pile. Mitoma, interestingly, second. He's a big threat for Brighton. Big emphasis on Olarena, thinking about it, to be similarly strong man to man. Callum Hudson-Odoi is third, and then Anthony Elanga is in there in 6th, and Morgan shows up on the chart as well with 40% actually. I haven't looked what it was last season. I suspect it's higher, because that was his weakness, was getting shots on target. That doesn't reflect the quality of the shots and how close they were to going in, and whether you expect them to go in. But I guess, Pete, it shows it's positive, isn't it? We're getting shots on target. We're looking dangerous. It doesn't really matter who the opponents are. Even at Anfield, we created enough to score a couple of goals.
I think it's a massively noticeable difference in the early games of the season. You come away from games. Well, I mean, was Southampton game? We must have had 20 shots. It's absolutely outrageous, the way that we're attacking with that sort of intent. I mean, there's work to do, isn't there, in terms of converting those moments into sort of high quality chances. I think, we have a lot of snapshots in games. but it's a real sort of I guess a trajectory, a real positive trajectory. That we're on the right path and we're becoming a more efficient team, a more creative team, a team that's going to have just many more options for goal scoring moments. I mean, Chris Wood just topping lists everywhere we go. It's incredible. That bloke. I mean, where he's come from with us, and I mean it puts many of us, including me, to shame the way that we reacted to his signing, and just thinking, what on earth have we done here? We've attached ourselves to a very long, very costly, well, it wasn't long at the time, was it? But certainly a very costly partnership there. But my word, that lad has been incredible. I sort of presumed again that he'd be dropping off this season, but he just doesn't really seem to be. So, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I guess to note is that you mentioned Matoma. He is an outrageous threat, and I think Aine is going to have another one of those games at the weekend. He's got this mad skill. I don't know whether I'm just a really unsophisticated viewer of football, or whether this is basically what it comes down to, is that he just seems to kick the ball past the opponent and leg it, and it's remarkable the way he can just do it to people. Like, this acceleration over a tiny bit of space is majestic. So yeah, he's going to be a real threat. I think another big game for the fullbacks, but my word, if they can put in a performance anything like they did against Liverpool, then we'll be all right.
Yeah, both fullbacks have got a big game, because Minter on the other side, who obviously, I think he was reasonably close to joining us, looks a big talent. He started the season very well for them as well. Mikey, on the flip side of that, I should have lifted this from Black Box, really. Mark and Az, last night we were discussing, as ever, defensive data. Again, only 4 games, so a small sample size, but we're third in the league so far, behind Liverpool and Man City, obviously, and then ahead of Villa in 4th and Arsenal in 5th. You always think of the best defence, because they just find a way to keep clean sheets. But our expected goals conceded is 0.76 per game, third best in the Premier League, and that carries on from what we saw with Nuno last season. But touch wood, I'm obviously cursing it. We seem to have solved the Achilles heel that we don't speak of. But again, another positive signs that everything's trending in the right direction.
It is, yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. Watching us this season and back end of last season, other than the stupid mistakes, I was fairly confident defensive-wise, and I'd always thought we'd score, because we always score pretty much. It's just keeping them out and stopping them stupid mistakes. So it's really comforting to know that we're topping some of these lists, because it means the eye test and everything we're seeing is actually transferring itself into data, which is great. I was just thinking as you were going through the thing a minute ago, made me laugh. Remember Brighton away last season, when we absolutely ripped Nuno and said, why are you not playing Callum? Why are you not playing Longer? And yet we've just talked for 10 minutes about, do you know what? He might not play either, and we'd be all right with it. So isn't it amazing how your opinions change with a few good results? We've seen some progression on the pitch. I think maybe in Nuno's head, he was just thinking exactly the same, as in, this is the way to beat Brighton, regardless of how we're doing in the previous 10 games, regardless of how we're in the league. And I suppose that's why he's got the job and why he's paid the big money and we're not. But I just found it quite funny. But I'm along the lines of Pete. Whatever team he puts out, I'll have faith that we can go there and do a job, because I've seen enough, even at this early part of the season, to know that everybody's drilled, they look fit, they look sharp, they look like there's a game plan, they do the jobs. And we might get turned over 3 or 4-0, but it shouldn't stop the momentum that we're building at the moment, because we're not going to win every game. We're not going to play well every game. But now it seems more to me than just going on the pitch and just seeing what happens. And there were times last season where I thought we were a bit guilty of that. But everything I've seen this season suggests that they're putting in a lot of work, whether it be drilling at set pieces. I'm not nervous now. I think on one of your previous shows, Matt, somebody said he was having a coronary every time they got a corner. I think we all were. But Liverpool must have had 10, 12 corners at the weekend. They had one header over, but other than that, we were fine. So there's obviously a lot of work and a lot of drilling on the training field that's gone in. So whatever happens on Sunday, we just need to, as James Ward-Prowse would say with his hands, stay calm and keep focus. It's a very long season, but I'm really optimistic that we can go and get something. And being top of charts, individual players or teams, is only a good thing for us. It shows we're doing something right.
It's such a good point that Mikey makes about Brighton last season. it says an awful lot about our general sort of outcome bias, I guess, that we're sort of obsessed with what happens in the end. But it probably wasn't the wrong thought process. But I think it says a lot about how far we've come, and probably in a couple of senses. One, I think that there is just a real sense of stability and growth and progress about the side at the moment. I think we spoke on a couple of occasions, but in the summer, all the whispers that we were hearing was that this was a really positive environment with the team really sort of gelling and coming together. And you're really seeing that now. And the other thing is we've actually added genuine quality. So, that perhaps the players just they didn't really have the environment, but they also just didn't really have the quality to sort of go and deliver that game plan like we are able to now. You bring in Milenkovic, you bring in Moreno, you bring in Anderson and Ward-Prowse. That is an awful lot of really steady, quality, bright, sensible footballers. And I think you can go into any game now thinking that you've got the team that can execute a game plan. It's just a really nice sort of measure of progress from last season, I think.
Yeah, the addition of quality is the key point from that Brighton game. I think Mark said it on Saturday. He referenced that game. The game plan was there, but we couldn't execute it a year ago. That Brighton game did annoy me last season, though, because they were dead on their feet. They just got knocked out of the Europa League and got tanked. And it was like when we played them at home and won and went for it. We didn't go for it last season, but it's a totally different context this season. And you can see why we wouldn't play wingers and why we're in a much better place that we just spent 32 minutes talking about. Let's move on away from the game because there's quite a few other bits I wanted to rattle through in the next 15 minutes or so, or maybe a bit more. Mikey departs early to catch the tram for a game I think might be rained off. Like, yeah,
it's
all right. It's fine. Right. One last point on the game, just quickly. The referee's Rob Jones, who that absolute howler, obviously, against Bournemouth. And it's not Michael Oliver. I've written down Jones v Oliver in my notes because we've had Michael Oliver twice. And you can just see like having a good ref helps you have a good game of football, I think. So
I don't think I thought about the ref in those two games that Michael Oliver was doing. It was such a nice change of pace, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I really hope that Rob Jones isn't a factor. He's got a sensible haircut, but he's got a massive ego. So hopefully he keeps out of the limelight. Right. Fan advisory board between the club and a group of fan representatives was held recently. The club posted some notes on their website with some interesting points around it, including a possible memorial for the Hillsborough disaster at the City Ground. So we'll follow that, but certainly welcome it. The other big thing, the main thing, was around the City Ground expansion. The club have reached a Section 106 agreement with the council with regards to developing the Peter Taylor stand, and there seems to be an interest in buying up more land, which would probably mean houses, I think, around the ground to kind of accelerate the process, increase the capacity from 42 to 42,000, which is massive. It kind of tallies what I was hearing a couple of weeks ago. People were worried that we'd move, but I think it's always been on track for the last month or so that we are staying, which is great news. I think this is important news. Pete, a Section 106 agreement rolling about the years to when I news reporter is basically an agreement between local authority and developers, in this case us, saying we'll do this to meet your demands. And it includes stuff like, it's normally like parks and roundabouts and doctor's surgeries and housing developments, isn't it? So I guess it's stuff around infrastructure and bus routes in this case, and lots of other things. But just your thoughts on it as a general sign of, positive progress in the path to staying at the City Ground?
Yeah, it certainly seems like positive news. I mean, I think the 106 agreement that was originally come to with the first planning application, which I guess is an agreement that's being altered now, and that's what's happening, I think was largely focused on transport and things like cycling and making sure that there was access for various things on that.
And the rowing club as well. Will that be part of it, I guess?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the rowing club has historically been the last sort of big issue between actually getting spades in the ground, so to speak. And I don't think, I mean, the previous agreement, I believe, was that nothing could happen until the new home had been built. So whether that's changing or not, I'm not sure, but hopefully there's progress on that front. I mean, I must admit, I'm not currently as across this as I have been over recent months. But the news sounds positive. I know that some of the reps on the fan advisory board feel pretty positive about it. So that's good stuff. And hopefully this is the right direction that we're heading in. I mean, clearly it's a case of seeing some action, isn't it? Because we've had a lot of words and we can continue to have those, but hopefully it's something that we'll see turn from plans into reality soon. And ultimately, where I want to get to, and where I think a lot of people want to get to, is being able to say that we know we're staying at the City Ground, that people like me can take our kids for their first game there when they grow up, which is sort of one of my life goals, I guess, to have that moment, that sort of passing on of the great place from one generation to the next. So if that is the steps that we're taking, then I'll certainly applaud all of those making it happen. I certainly don't think it's been a formality, and it looked like things might go in a different direction only a few months ago. So very positive. Fingers crossed we start seeing those words turn into actions as soon as possible. It's an incredibly difficult process. I think we have to be aware of that. And as much as I've been critical of some of the communications and some of the decisions taken, you have to be understanding that these are really, really complicated issues, and they will involve an awful lot of hard work to resolve. So if that's all happening, then kudos to everyone, and fingers crossed we can start seeing it soon.
Yeah, hopefully so. Agree with what Pete says. It's not just a case of knock down a stand, build another one, fill 4 corners in, and you've got some Super Bowl. It's going to take forever. Well, not forever. 10 years or whatever to get to that point. But it feels like we're on the right path. Other notes from the meeting. The club said they were aware of support dissatisfaction around screen locations, especially for people in Bridgeford Upper. I kind of extend that to Brian Clough Upper for parts of it. You cannot see screens, Mikey. I don't know if it's like that where you are, but as part of the match day experience, it's something they need to look at, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit annoying, to be honest with you. So I sit bottom Brian Clough near the Trent end, and the screen of the Bridgeford's too far away from him, squinting my eyes to try and see. But the one that's they've kind of shoehorned into the corner, I can't really see it all. And been in the main stand once as well, and it was really difficult to see from there. And I'm not surprised other people dotted around the ground are struggling. So it's maybe something they could do with maybe thinking about, because that pre-match build-up and everything that goes along with it, and rounding the fans up, and showing all the pre-match videos and all the great work they're doing in the community and all that sort of stuff that they do before and during the game, is quite a key part of the match day experience. And you don't want people missing out because they're straining the necks, or they literally can't see from the seat that they're in. So I just wonder if there's something they could do to be a bit creative and maybe change them or tweak them. I understand the complexities. I understand this seats. I absolutely get that. But just hope they do something around it. Just going back to stand as well. If anybody's ever been to Crew have one massive stand and 3 small stands. And if we're going to like 42,000 or whatever, I've just got a thought in my head that our main stand's going to be massive. And then you get the other stands as well, so it might look a bit out of place, but I'm only joking. But whatever they do with that, I think you're right, Matt. It will take a few years. Remember when the Trent End was built? They did that pretty quick. I think they turned that around in maybe about a year, but I think that was just knocking something down, building a new stand. But this is all about the infrastructure around it, as Pete was saying, and making sure everybody's comfortable and everybody can access. And it's literally the main stand and the way into our ground. So it will take a lot of time, but it does sound as if there's progress been made. I just keep my fingers crossed that all these little things, and this is where the fan advisory board is really good. Little things like that, if we didn't have that, may have gone unnoticed, or you might just got a few emails or a few people with passing comments after the game. Now there's a forum. There are people there that act, they come in different sort of ways, but they act as our voice, I guess. So this is obviously a bone of contention, and hopefully they'll take it away and see if they can tweak it. But yeah, I did read that they posted. It was interesting. I think the chairman's committed, I think he said, to a couple of interviews throughout the season, which is great. And it sounds as if they're going to get back together as a big group as well. So I guess anything that is a fan group that we can, a fan base, that we can see that might enhance that match day experience, be that a little tweak or a big tweak, I guess we just let those guys know, and they sort of feed it back to the club if we don't do it ourselves. So yeah, it's all positive, Matt.
I do look forward to seeing the architecture of the new Peter Taylor stand. If it's going to be the same or they've changed the plans, whether it's to be that big, they must be doing something funky because there isn't a lot of space. unless the 42,000 includes a redeveloped Bridgeford end. It wasn't totally clear. It might well do from the notes. Last point on that meeting, I raised this because I didn't like what the club said. Unhappiness at Carabao Cup prices. However, the club acknowledged that we had the third highest attendance in the round. This is in reference to the Newcastle game where they charged £25 or £30. I can't even remember now. Apologies. I wrote in here that I really hate that answer, because that's just saying, oh, it's free market economics. If you can't pay it, someone will. And it's sort of the Aston Villa notion of just charging what you want for Champions League because someone will pay it. And I really hope we go away from that mentality and it doesn't seep in, because, you don't price people out. You want an atmosphere. You want to, level the playing field for people to go, and you want to reward loyalty. And the club doesn't need, and Aston Villa don't need to charge huge amounts of money to meet PSR. I think that's a disingenuous answer, and it's one of my goats. The thing that gets my goat, whatever the saying is. Don't go down that route, please, because we can still thrive as a football club, and we are thriving as a football club. You don't need to charge a huge amount of prices to push people out. So that was something that disappoints me. I'll bring Pete in a sec, but then the flip side of loads of good stuff that's going on with the football club at the moment on the pitch and off the pitch. People might have seen this on Twitter. In fact, you might have not seen it, Pete. There was terrible vandalism at one of the local clubs, Pelican Colts. That's it, and £10,000 worth of damage done to their facilities. They're trying to raise money, and I'll put the link for a GoFundMe in the description for this if people want to chip in. I think Brennan Johnson has put in £1,000. We'll come on to Brennan. Evangelos Marinakis wrote to the club saying that he'll match the funding of £8,000 that they've already raised, which is fantastic and really deserves flagging. So any thoughts, anything you want to say, Pete, on that? And then I want to move on to Brennan, actually.
I think you've nailed the chat about the ticket pricing. There are two sort of very, very different ways of looking at this from the club and from fans that will butt heads increasingly as we establish ourselves as a Premier League football club. As you mentioned it, the free market side of things, and then the sort of what we consider to be almost ethics, I guess, as fans, are very hard to reconcile. But it's something that can be done, and it's something that should be considered rather than just chasing the cash. And I hope that the club can be more considerate in future on that side of things, and just perhaps bear in mind what fans have done for this football club. Those fans who pay for their season tickets while it was COVID time, all of us who have continued going to games while things have been tough. It's still, I think you should still bear those things in mind. And we need to attract new fans. We need to keep the ones we've got, and we need to try and retain some of those things that make us great. And that atmosphere at the ground is one of those things. So let's just hopefully we can make sure we're being respectful as these sort of issues arise. But I think it's a hard balance, and you have to also be appreciative of the sort of commercial side of things. But ticket pricing isn't an area where the club are going to make a massive financial difference, but they can make a huge difference to the lives of fans. So let's just hope that balance is kept in consideration. On this, the local club, I mean, it's a really lovely gesture, isn't it? So kudos to whoever at the club has been involved in that, and the chairman, and to Brennan Johnson as well. These are always really nice stories. It's all sort of cliched, hackneyed stuff, but these clubs may well be providing the next young Forest star that we're all going to watch. So we want to keep them close and keep the football club sort of grounded in the community. Easy for me to say it's not my cash. So thank you to all of those who are contributing and helping out, because it's obviously a difficult time for them.
Yeah, well said. Well done to Evangelos Marinakis for putting his hands in his pockets there. Right, as Peter says in the chat, do us a favour and hit like on the video. 250 people with us, which is great. Appreciate you being with us. One last topic, I'll throw to Mikey first because he's got a go. I mentioned Brennan there. Some people will have seen on Twitter the video of him scoring last night for Spurs, scores a last minute winner, and then at the end really doesn't want to go to applaud the fans particularly, or I'm sure he does, but he looks sheepish about it, and Son has to push him to the front. And I guess it's in reference to him closing his Instagram account because he got dogs abuse from fans, which is terrible. And my point was, I tweeted out last night that if we end up selling Elanga for big money, because there was interest in the summer, I would gladly have Brennan back. And got lots of likes, lots of engagement as the world seems to revolve around today. But there was, I think it got like 25 replies, and 20 of them were saying something along the lines of, "We don't need him. We've moved on. We're better than him," in a sense, which I really don't think. I think people are either overestimating where we are as a football club or how good Brennan is. So the quick question, Mikey, before you have to dash, is would you, in just really quick, because I don't think it'll happen, would you want Brennan back in future if the opportunity arose and the circumstances were right, and probably Elanga had actually gone?
They always say never go back to your old club, don't they, for the players? And we've seen that for numerous players over the time, but I think Brennan Johnson, what is he, 22? He's 23. He's nowhere near peak yet. He'll peak when he's 26, 27. He's just broke into the Wales side. He's playing every international for them. He's in and out of Tottenham, but I think they'll go back to him because I think that Odebeer's injured. He is a young player that has good games and sometimes has bad games. And what he experienced after the North London derby, and let's be honest, they always lose to Arsenal. So it'll be in one month, it'll be somebody else next month. Doesn't excuse it at all. But I think I'm quite a sensitive soul sometimes. So if it was me and I didn't have a great game, and I got a load of abuse, which made me deactivate one of my social media's accounts, the last thing I'd want to do is walk up and clap them. And it probably wasn't the same people, of course, because you go away with Tottenham. My mate's a Tottenham fan, has been for years. He struggles to get away tickets. So that'll be the hardcore support that we're obviously applauding him. But I think the point still remains that he's obviously been affected by this. He'll come through it and he'll grow as a footballer. And I think his dad was there last night, so he'll have a lot of support. But in terms of him as a stature, as a player, yeah, he's great. We're on a roll at the moment with Forest and we're looking good. But it's a long season. We get ups and downs. And as much as we might go and beat Brighton 1-0, we might lose 3-0. And then ask the same question again. So Brennan's trajectory will go up. He'll get better and better. And if the chance does come to get us back, you never know. Of course, he'd be a valuable asset for Forest. It's just players go through good and bad times. And I don't condone any abuse for any individual player, especially young lads that, are trying to make their way in the game and getting a kick in. So I felt for him a bit last night, to be honest. You saw the look in his face when he went over there and applauded him, and I wouldn't like it. But no, I think Brennan's an excellent player. I think it worked for all parties. We've got a great fee for him. It allowed us to strengthen, but it doesn't mean that he is now peaked. He's going to get better. So if we get better and he gets better, you never know what can happen in a few years. But yeah, kudos to the lad. He took his goal well yesterday, and I hope these people that insulted him have a long hard think about what they're doing, because there's no place for that in life, never mind in football.
Yeah, it was a good finish. It was a very Brennan goal with people watching. That's how Spurs should be using him, I imagine. But that's a different conversation. Right, Mikey, you probably want to dash, but I'll carry on with Pete for another 10 minutes or so. But Mikey Clarke, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And I'm off to the test match, the one day today. I don't think it's going to rain. So hopefully England will turn Australia over, and anybody that's there, I'll say hi to them. So have a good rest of the 10 minutes. Thanks for everybody contributing, and I'll catch you all soon.
Enjoy, pal.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye. Is he going to log himself out, or does he need me to do it? He's done it himself. Is he going to just say hi to people unsolicited when he says, I'll say hi to anyone that's there? It would be quite Mikey just to go up to 17,000 people. Right, I'll throw a couple more things at Pete, including that Brennan topic, or development of young players maybe in a sec. But just a quick word for Home Move estate agents. Thank you very much to Ben Sales, who has sponsored us for like 6 months, and he's going to sponsor us for another little while, which is fantastic. People like him really help make me be able to do this in the long term, full time, which is great. So yeah, if you're looking to buy or sell, check out their website. give Ben a call, see what he can do for you. Numbers on the screen, emails on the screen, ben@homemovea.co.uk, and link is in the description. So yes, thanks to Ben for his backing. And as always, they are 5-star rated on Google. Just picking up that Brennan sort of point in a wider context, Pete, and you weigh in on Brennan as well if you want, but players don't develop, young players don't develop in like this linear fashion. The graph doesn't always go in a straight line. It's the same with Elanga. A couple of weeks ago, or even now, people are saying, oh, Jota Silva should be ahead of him. Oh, he's so frustrating. He is annoying. His game winds me up. And, he is frustrating sometimes. But this is young players. This is Forest players as well. We take, bringing it back to Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, and, we do the odd reclamation project because that's where we are in the transfer market. Just your wider thoughts on everything I've thrown at you there.
Well, there's quite a lot of different things there. Yeah, I'm not really sure what the question is.
There isn't one.
Yeah, I mean, on the sort of youth development, it's easy to see it that way, isn't it? Because we have these players come into the team and we see the snapshots of what they can do, and then we sort of immediately draw that line, I guess, of where we think their potential takes them, and you can be quite impatient and frustrated on the path to that. And you've got to give players space to develop. We've spoken about Elanga a lot, and when we talked about the potential of selling him, we talked about some of these issues, I guess. But you have to think in Elanga as a sort of case study. You've got a player there who has come from a big club, having played pretty minimal football, really. Fits and starts. Has come to Forest, had an enormous impact in his first season. And look, we saw what he just did at the weekend against Liverpool. I mean, that was an unbelievable bit of skill from him. So it's sort of mad that we get frustrated with him, and I do that as well, because you sort of know what he can do, I suppose. But he's already contributed a huge amount, having played not much football and being in the very early stages of his development in his career, really. So I think it's incumbent on all of us as fans to try and be a little bit more patient with these things. Certainly all of us get a bit carried away, don't we? I mean, on the Brennan stuff, like, speaking of fans, I guess I cannot get my head around the sort of behaviour of supporters who are abusing their own players. Well, abusing anyone really, but the players that are representing your club and clearly trying hard and whatever. It's just I can't even remotely compute why they're creating an environment where it's just going to make it harder for him to succeed and making the bloke unhappy. It's just it's a mad way to behave. But I feel for Brennan because he's had a bit of a difficult run of it. I think things soured a bit towards the end of his time here. I think some of our fans were pretty unkind as well, and obviously there was moments of things kicking off in the stands with his dad and stuff. And I think he just needs some time, really. I don't even think he's been that bad there, but expectations are obviously enormous. They've got players like Son who are just getting on for world class, and you stick someone like Brennan next to him with a massive transfer fee, and I guess that the demands and expectations are instant and lofty, but just doesn't need to be like that. I think we can all be a lot more patient, and if Brennan wants to come home, then I'll gladly support him and cheer his name again. I think it's unlikely because the finances, I think, would be pretty prohibitive. But if that was to happen one day, I'd welcome him back with open arms. He's one of our own.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen because of the finances and stuff like that. It was just interesting, and you make a good point about transfer fees. Because a player comes with a fee. We've had this with Sangare. We haven't seen a lot of him, but we see a fee and a reputation and think, oh, he's going to be really good. And Spurs fans probably see a fee and think, oh, this guy's going to be like some superstar, and probably not seen much of him and realise that there is work in progress there. He did
Sorry, I was just going to say it's a massive change as well, isn't it? Going from playing for Forest in a team massively up against it, where your whole game is about springing the counter-attacking, surprising teams in behind, to suddenly huge expectation on him to get the ball to feet and to produce moments in a team that's dominating and against deep defences and low blocks and all that sort of stuff. It's a monumental change, and he's got a lot of learning and a lot of adapting to do. But I just don't understand why you wouldn't want to support that journey, because it's it's for the best of everyone to maximise a player's potential. So I don't really understand that from the fans.
Yeah, and he wasn't even bad last year. I think it was 5 goals and 10 assists, which is, and then Elanga got 5 goals and 9 assists for us. Right, couple of other quick bits to cover. Probably pushing an hour here. Saturday is the 20th anniversary of the death of Brian Clough, and we haven't mentioned it. And I'm not sure there's a lot we can even say, Pete, because we all know what his contribution was to the football club and football. I mean, I remember the game after his passing. Were you at it? It was
Yeah,
West Ham,
I was.
I think,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
West Ham,
Marlon King scored. Yeah, I mean,
Paul Evans.
Yeah, Paul Evans. Oh, that goal from long distance.
They scored that lovely. I think it was left foot through the defender's legs from distance. I love Paul Evans because he was, not a great footballer, but just an absolute terrier on the pitch. I love seeing those lads just, really give it all.
No, that's true. That's Paul Evans. God, talk about summing up how we've come a long way. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot we can say about it without recognising, 20 years has gone fast for a start. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else we can add because we all know Brian Clough's the greatest manager the football club's ever had and ever will have, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's mad how time flies, isn't it? To think that that's 20 years ago just sort of seems pretty crazy, and it makes one think about the passing of time a bit. And there's a really nice piece that Danny Taylor published in The Athletic that I think if people want to take a moment to sort of reflect on the occasion, then I'd give that a read. He speaks to family members and players and all sorts in it, and there's a nice bit with Nigel Clough where he talks about how people are still coming up to him every day with their sort of various Cloughy anecdotes and all that sort of stuff. I think he says it seems like half of the country had met Brian and had a tale to tell, and I guess that says a lot about the bloke. I mean, larger than life character who just had an absolutely astronomical impact on our football club and our city and others as well. So yeah, I think taking a moment to reflect this weekend, and hopefully the boys can do him proud and bring back something from Brighton. And so much of what we've got at this football club, the things that we treasure, are down to what he gave to us. So yeah, it'll be nice to take a moment to reflect.
Yeah, wise words as ever. So making an impact. Just a quick shout out for Sam Perkins, big friend of Greg Mitchell. Who people will know about Sam for his work with Stand Against MND as he suffers himself with just the worst disease, like absolutely horrible. But he won Outstanding Achievement, I think it was, or Fundraiser of the Year at the Just Giving Awards last night. I should have written that down, sorry, but just to recognise all the work that he's done and his family have done to raise, I think it's like 260 grand for research into like I say, just the worst disease. So well done, Sam, for all that you've done and continue to do, and family and friends around him. Right, Pete Blackburn, any other business before we go?
No, nothing to add from me. Just say isn't it lovely to be in such a positive space with the side, and looking forward to games against teams that everyone's going to be expecting us to get beaten by, but knowing that we can go there and put in a performance, and fingers crossed, come Sunday night match of the day too, we'll be leading the schedule with another lovely story of a brilliant away win. Yeah,
I don't think we'll be leading the schedule because it's Man City v Arsenal, but
you never know, mate. If we smash them,
that's true.
0-0 draw City Arsenal. Sorted.
Sounds good to me. Right, as ever, if you have enjoyed this, then do us a favour and hit like. Do subscribe as well to the YouTube channel. Give us a lovely review on whatever audio platform you listen on, and do consider becoming a YouTube member. And at some point, I will do an audio Patreon. It's been in the pipeline for about 9 months, but anyone that knows me means we're probably about halfway to getting it, because that's the pace I operate at. Right, we'll be back tomorrow with the Brighton opposition preview with as mentioned, and then the game is on Sunday, so Sunday post-match show, and then further reflections on Monday and into next week. I'm cracking on for Fulham. It is Fulham after that, isn't it? It goes Fulham, then Chelsea, yeah. Good. I'll be watching that game with you, Pete Blackburn.
You will.
Right.
What a treat,
Pete Blackburn. Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Certainly was. Good to have so many people for an hour going through till 10 a.m. So, yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. And if we don't see you tomorrow, then we shall see you soon.